Makeup,
Who's it being broadcast?
YouTube,
YouTube. So you just
and I will send you a link. Yeah,
I said left Twix only left Twix.
West Twix only. Okay. All right, makes sense to me. Yeah. My alarm didn't ring, so it's not technically 9:10. We got about 25 seconds, but we can go. We can get going. There it is. There's the alarm. I don't know how the video is going to record in the dark, but okay. We'll try it out. Now, let's see what it does. Let's see how well it works. Hi.
Hi.
That was for the camera. But good morning anyway. All right. So let's talk today about Module 7. Active Directory rights management services. Is it usually popular? I haven't seen it a lot out in the field. But Microsoft certainly has given us a very good tool to extend some of the things we're doing with security, protecting certain documents from actions that the user may try to do in order to take information and spread it, pass it to somebody else. They might print it out on their printer, forward it in email, that type of stuff, which means for me that the creator or the owner of the content is very difficult for me to manage. And my information may get out there to the wrong hands. If you think about digital rights management, for like stuff like music or songs or videos that you buy or PDF books that you buy on the internet, there's usually some type of system. So when you download the PDF, you can't just go out there and put it on the internet, give it to everybody else, or give it to your friends. There's many different means that they use to protect their content. Like I buy some PDFs and they're signed. Right? They have my name in the PDF. It's embedded in the PDF. So if it gets out in the general public, they know who to come and sue. Other things restrict maybe what device you could buy a song. I don't know how Apple does it now. You buy a song, you can only play it on like an iPad or a registered device from iTunes and stuff like that. They're controlling access, so you don't go out and take somebody else's content and spread it around and give it to everybody else. We're using the same idea here. So let's take a look. We're going to have an overview of RMS, Rights Management Services. How do I deploy and manage that infrastructure necessary to make this happen? How do I configure the content protection? Protect that content that is mine. And what if I need people external to my organization possibly access this type of system? So we'll talk about that as well. So let's first get a good idea of RMS, what it is, the different scenarios we'll have for using these, the components that we need to deploy, how the certificates and licenses work, how the system works from an end user perspective, the overall processes involved. It's information protection technology. IMS, you'll sometimes hear that term, IMS, Information Management Services. It's designed to prevent information from leaking out of your organization. So somebody sends an email to somebody else with an important confidential company document that's meant for their eyes only. That person decides, this looks pretty good. I'm going to forward it on to a bunch of other people. I'm going to post it on Twitter. I'm going to put it up on Facebook. Yeah, that's not going to be good if we have everybody out there looking at that information. Now, this technology integrates with, obviously, Microsoft's products, the Windows operating system, Microsoft Office products like Word and Excel, Exchange server for emailing purposes, and SharePoint server. Are you SharePoint people? No, you're not Exchange people. That's fine. All right. But those systems can leverage this technology. We're going to use symmetric and asymmetric keys. Another reason why we will implement a public key infrastructure in most environments. It gives us the ability to use something like RMS. It protects data at rest, in transit, and importantly, in use. We want to think about data in those terms. Data sitting inside my database at rest, just stored somewhere. Is it protected? When I'm moving that data from that storage location, from that database, over my network, through my switches, through my routers, through my servers, through that client that's being managed by my organization, that data in transit should be encrypted and protected possibly. And then, of course, now we're extending that to in use. Once I got that document over to that end user on his computer, what can he do with it? Can I still protect it? Yes, I can. All right. This was created to extend the protection of documents, email, and web pages from unauthorized copying, printing, forwarding, editing, deleting, etc. Question?
So this is almost like a copywriting, like an intellectual property.
Exactly. Digital rights management, same general idea, protecting your intellectual property and confidential documents.
And this can be upheld in a court of law?
That I'm not sure about,
Oh.
but probably. I'd have to look into that. I'm not a lawyer, and I am not giving any legal advice. Okay, just so you know, I'm not giving any legal advice at all. All right? But it does, this system is designed to give the person who creates the content a high level of control over how it's consumed by other people. All right? Because I don't want to be scared to share my content with other people because it might leak out of my organization. It's not a replacement, however, for access control. You still have to use NTFS permissions, digital dynamic access control, and that type of stuff still has to be in place. Encryption still has to be in place. You still have to do all those other steps. This is not a replacement for any of that. It's just an extension of that. Okay? So you can protect the file by encrypting it, but if you share it with somebody else, once that person decrypts it, what stops him from making a copy of it? Printing it out, giving it to everybody you see? Nothing. Except for RMS. All right? RMS can make your recipient's copy of the file self-destruct after a period of time. The time frame for access is limited. Like the little spy movies. This message will self-destruct after 12 seconds or something like that, and it blows up. Yeah, you can do that with content. That person can read that email or read that document for the next 7 days. After that, the document becomes unavailable. Isn't that nifty? That's a great feature. Right?
Unavailable just to that recipient or globally
Yes.
unavailable?
Could be that recipient or globally unavailable. Depends upon the template that I set. We'll talk about templates later. Right? So just keep in mind, this is a great extension for what we're already possibly doing. Hopefully you're doing in your environment. Encryption, data protection, stuff like that. Okay. So we're trying to prevent the transmission of sensitive information, winding up somehow outside of our organization. We might also need to have privacy regulations apply. Right? We're handling people's personalized, identifiable information, Social Security number, health information, and that type of stuff. Right? There are laws in certain countries that protect people's privacy. Can be used with encryption to protect data in transit and at rest, and should be used. It's not pretty intelligent to protect it only with RMS, but yet leave it sitting there on the server unencrypted, unprotected, and anybody can go and read it. What's the point of that? We'll just copy the file off the server. There are a lot of different components to this. We set up something called the cluster. Now, it's not a Windows cluster, which is a fault tolerance thing. It's just a group of RMS servers acting together, that's all. And the real core of this is a server. You have to have at least one RMS server in a cluster. The server is what's going to be the licenser. It's going to grant licenses based upon digital certificates. Okay. This will allow rights management services to protect content. It's also going to need to certify the identity of people or devices that want to access that content. All right. The client, the software that's built in already to Vista 7 and 8, and I assume it's also in 10. This is just an older slide. The client, that operating system, knows how to talk to applications that are RMS aware or enabled applications. So I have to have a server, the client has to support it, and the app has to support it. That's very important here. The application needs to know how to use RMS. The RMS-enabled applications allow publication and consumption of protected content. This will be stuff like Microsoft Office, Exchange, and SharePoint Server. Are there a lot of other third-party programs? Not necessarily. Question.
If you have a file with RMS enabled and the computer doesn't have one of those operating systems, they can't view it at all, or the RMS feature.
They can't view it at all, yeah. It's protected, it's encrypted until they contact the server properly and get the encryption key to unlock it, so they will only see an encrypted file. Now, Microsoft would like people to go out and create applications that use this. Now, again, not a lot of third-party programs have done this, but if your organization is large, has an in-house development team, and they would like to develop this, Microsoft does produce a software development kit, that's the SDK, that tells the programmers who are writing those types of applications how to build these features into the apps that they're programming. So you can build your own applications that utilize this system. Question?
So, RMS is a public-facing service, like that means like it can be contracted over internet to.
Yeah, we'll talk about the different scenarios that we're going to have with external access. There's different ways I can do that.
But by default, it's not.
Yeah.
But then what's the purpose? I thought it was
Inside the company, I can share documents, and you can see my document, and you can consume it, but should you try to get it outside of the company, that user would not be allowed to see it.
It's mainly used for protection within the company,
Right.
Like copyright concerns when outside for other.
A true public-facing thing, like protecting your music or intellectual property from general no,
Okay.
not for that. No, it's more for internal business documents and that type of stuff. All right. Certificates and licenses. A wide range of different certificates used by this system. A server license certificate, the licensed content, an RMS machine certificate for the computer account itself, a rights account certificate. We'll see these in use in a few minutes. A client license, a publishing license, an end user license. There's a lot of licenses here, all maintained by the system. It makes the system definitely complex. That's why people really haven't gravitated as much to it, maybe as Microsoft wants, for making it easier. Each version to use makes it easier and easier and easier. This came out as an add-in for Windows Server 2003, was integrated in 2008, and improved in 2012, which is where it stands now. Hold on. This dumb thing just keeps. All right. So let's take a look at the process here, how this is going to work. The author configures protection of his content. So I write a Word document about our new secret plan to take over the world. All right. If I'm the designer of the evil bad guys' plans to take over the world using the Death Star or whatever, so I configure a document here to protect it. The server is going to issue for that document a license. Notice it is an encryption key. The author defines a collection of usage rights and conditions, what is allowed or not allowed to be done with that document. You cannot copy it, you cannot delete it, you cannot print it, you cannot forward it in an email, etc., etc., etc. The application then encrypts the file with the symmetric key. So the file does become digitally encrypted. The symmetric key used to encrypt the file is then encrypted with the server's public key. Notice it is not the author's public key. It's the server's public key. So somebody along wants to consume that document. Application or browser requests the server for a use license. I want to use that document. Please give me a license to use that. The server issues the use license, assuming that the user has been properly authenticated and is allowed to see the content at all. Assuming the user is allowed, the server gives the user a license. The server decrypts the symmetric key using its private key, and then re-encrypts the symmetric key using the recipient's public key. All right, got to go over that again, right? All right. So the author makes the content. The application encrypts it with a symmetric key. The server protects it with its key. When the user requests access, the server takes its key off and puts the user's key on to this encryption. So now the user is able to unencrypt that content. So the server will re-encrypt the symmetric key using the public key of the person who wants to consume the content, and adds the encrypted session key to the use license that controls the usage of that content.
And this takes place in how many seconds?
Under a second or two, depends upon the environment. Boom, 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 back and forth, and it's done. Wow.
This basically has, like, the server has its own lock on it.
And
when I want it, it just switches the lock
exactly.
that I have.
Right. And then issues you a particular license to use that content. Pretty nice. This slide is also in your book, right? And you'll come back to that. So let's look at how do I deploy this, the different deployment scenarios I have, what's a cluster, what's required on the client side to make this work, how do I back up and recover this. It's a good use of a virtual machine. And decommissioning and removing RMS is not an easy, straightforward process. There's a couple of considerations that have to be taken into play. You can't just go and uninstall it. And we'll explain what that is when we get to that. So what are some scenarios? Very basic scenario, rights management in a single forest. Smaller, mid-sized company only has one forest. Carl?
Is there any conflict with the AD RMS encryption and the EFS encryption?
No. They can work together, yep. Yep.
After the first go around, how does it work the second and third time?
Same thing. Always does. RMS in multiple forests. So if your company has multiple forests, it's certainly workable in that regard. You may be using this on an extranet with a partner organization if you're working on a collaborative project. And federation services, if you haven't talked about yet. We will have a module on federation services coming up in the near future. We'll talk about federation services, but it can integrate with that as well. We'll talk about that later, which is just single sign-on across multiple systems. Sounds easy, but it's not. All right. So to configure a cluster, there's a lot of things I have to do. I either have to set up a new cluster or join an existing one if one already exists. Clusters use a database to store information. This can be Windows internal database for small deployments on a single server. Larger deployments will use a SQL Server database, and that's a separate install, config, management. That's a whole world in and of itself. You might have SQL, in a big environment, you're going to have SQL Server people who do that for you. So you're just like, I need a SQL Server database, they hook you right up. Hopefully. Smaller environment, you have to become a SQL Server person as well, which is a learning curve. We need to set up service account for that and choose various configurations of how this cluster works. Cryptographic modes that it's going to use, how it's going to store keys and passwords. It'll need to set up a website because it's going to use HTTP and HTTPS to transmit information. It's going to need an address for that cluster as well. Certificates will need to be installed for the cluster. So there's some configuration with that. It's not a straightforward install, although you're still adding it as a role in Windows Server 2012 R2. Clients, they're again including in Vista and newer operating systems. It's also included in Server 2008 and newer. Available for download for previous versions of Windows operating system if you still have XP and need to support that. I'm not sure about 2000, if you're going to 2000 or Windows 98 or something like that. You know, you just have to understand that using a 15-year-old operating system means that you might not have some of these nice new advanced services. Mac OS X is supported. I don't know about the other iOS or anything else in Mac. What's up?
The RMS server handles all the certificates itself, or do you also have to install the certificate authority?
You'll need a certificate authority for this. Some of them can use self-signed certificates, but this generally requires a CA. All right. RMS-enabled applications, which might be Office 2007, 10, 2013, 2016, whatever we're up to now. Exchange Server 2007 and above. All right. The clients need a license, though. Clients need a special license. You know, for Microsoft, you have to pay Microsoft for the service. They're called client access licenses, or CALs. All right. So the role comes with Server 2012. If you want to hook up 100 clients to use this, you have to pay Microsoft for 100 client licenses. I want to say the last I looked, it was about $30 a license. But that is usually heavily discounted in a huge package. Right? You're buying thousands of copies of Office and, you know, Windows 10, and you just sign a big contract that you wind up with maybe $5 a user. So it all depends on what you need and how much you buy. You could get a serious discount. But we don't deal with licensing here. That's for the bean counters in accounting and finance to worry about, hopefully. Backing up and recovery. Back up your private key and all your certificates. If you lose those, you could really have a bad day. Or a bad year, actually. You might have a problem unlocking certain content. Ensure that the database is backed up regularly. If you're using the Windows internal database, this might be your responsibility. If you're using SQL Server, the SQL Server DBAs, it usually becomes their task to do and make sure that happens. Your templates, if you create any templates, which you probably will, you'll need to back them up. The easiest way to do this really is to run RMS server as a virtual machine and just do a full server backup of the VM. It gets everything then, great, makes my life easier. We love virtualization. That's why we're taking a cloud course, right? As you all thought, man, I'd love to virtualize a data center. That's why you signed up. All right. Decommissioning, yes, I do use that word, and removing RMS. You have to decommission a cluster prior to removing it. You can't just uninstall it. Why? It provides a key that decrypts previously published content. If I just take it out, people might not be able to unencrypt certain content. It's suddenly gone. The servers are no longer there. Remember, the server has to unlock the content and then lock it with your key. If there's no server to unlock the content, you're out of luck. All right? You will leave the server in a decommissioned state until all protected content is migrated. So you've made sure that you can open and get to every file separately, and you saved it separately, and you've moved it off that system. You want to export the server license certificate prior to uninstalling the role. Do that all correctly and ensure your content's all protected. Then when you're done, after decommissioning it, you can then go and uninstall it. Question?
All of these servers are down, and you have thousands of files that are using this. You won't be able to access them.
Yeah, I don't think it stores anything in Active Directory. as far as these keys and certificates.
So if you have one RMS server and like 1 million documents out there and it goes down, nobody can access it.
Make sure you have it properly backed up and protected, yes. You can set up recovery agents and stuff like that. We'll talk about something called the super users group that will help you in those cases. Yeah.
Not that it's down and I can't, like, I don't have it back, but I can get it back. Like, what if it just, like, something happens to it? No one can access those files?
Possibly, yeah. Yeah.
Like, power goes off or whatever.
Right. That's why we don't set up one. We don't set up a single server. We set up a cluster of servers. We can put them in different physical locations, and we protect them like any other system because it can limit access to those important files. So we won't have just one. We'll have multiples in a cluster, spread throughout our organization, and definitely well protected. It has to be highly available, and you have to have a good disaster recovery plan to get that back should something happen. Because yes, you can lose those access to those documents. I'm sure there's a manual way around it, assuming you have backed up all of the certificates. But it's not going to be an easy process. All right. Good. So templates, what they are. We can set up a template for what's called offline use. We'll need to talk about the super users group and integration with DAC. All right. Rights policy templates allow authors to standardize the way that they're protecting their content across the entire organization. Different applications will allow different forms of rights. Word documents will have different ones than maybe Excel documents, and so on. You can configure rights related to viewing, editing, and printing. You can configure expirations. My Word documents may expire in 7 days, Excel documents in 3 days, web pages in 25 days, whatever you want, all different templates. You can configure content revocation as well, taking those keys back from somebody for some particular reason. Offline use, you have to make sure that the templates that you're using for offline use are published to some shared folder somewhere so the user can download those. You need to enable the rights policy template management scheduled task and edit the registry key and specify the shared folder location. Basically, we're going to have the client for offline use download the keys necessary for the content. So they don't have to go back and forth to the server when somebody takes their laptop and goes on a trip and goes to the airport. Your book has more details about the setup for this, and there's a TechNet article that just walks you through the basic setup. Super user groups are granted full owner rights in all use licenses that are issued by the cluster on which the super user group is configured. It is not configured by default. You want to set this up? Yes, you do. Why? Can be used as a data recovery mechanism for protected content. Can recover content that may have expired. If the template somehow gets deleted, content without requiring author credentials. This must be an Active Directory group with an assigned email address. And so this can help in recovering some of these documents if you have certain problems. But you still want to keep your servers online and healthy if you're going to use this system. It's one of the risks of using it. Your company decides to have only 2 servers in Chicago, and Chicago site becomes unavailable, you're going to have some problems getting to some of your content. So that's always important to consider. Dynamic access control. All right, DAC applies encryption by using RMS. It can protect documents even if inadvertently saved, sent, or processed incorrectly. It's just an extension, actually, of rights management to the file server. So it integrates very nicely with DAC. Right? DAC can allow you to do stuff based upon stuff like keywords. protect content. All right, so again, you've seen in DAC, you can use the file classification infrastructure. Classify, remember those confidential docs that went in and read the document to see if the word secret was in there? Yeah, so this could be really handy in combination with RMS. It's very, very powerful. External access, this will definitely happen in most organizations. Somebody outside of my organization might want to get to some content, or I might want to make content available to other people outside. Maybe we're working in a partnership or something like that. So we have different options for enabling these external users to access the content inside my organization. We can do stuff like trusted user domains, trusted publishing domains. All right. We can also use Microsoft account. They used to call it like their passbook and stuff like that, a Windows Live login and so on. If you have like an Outlook account, that's what it's using to sign you in and so on. You could use that as well. All right. There's some other considerations for implementing this external access. Also, Windows Azure has a similar system, AD rights management, that they use as well. All right, so let's look at some options we have. We have trusted user domains. Exchange protected content between two organizations. So not only can users in my company access that Word document or my evil plans to take over the world, but Microsoft, if they're my partner, could also do or have access to that file. A trusted publishing domain, a little bit different. This is where you have 2 or 3 publishers, but all going to the same organization. So Microsoft publishes content that I can consume, and just the opposite of a trusted user domain. We can do a federation trust. Again, federation services, that single sign-on, linking multiple organizations or partners together. Through that trust relationship, we can also enable RMS access. And again, I mentioned Windows Live ID, whatever they're calling it now. Windows Live Login, Microsoft account, whatever it's being called. Allow standalone users access to the content. So people outside, maybe you have a freelancer working on one of your projects. He'll need to set up a Microsoft Live ID or Windows Live ID account, and then you can assign permissions to that account. Basically, you're kind of federating your system with Microsoft itself and their Live ID system. Come on. All right, so the trusted user domains, to implement them, again, this is going to allow users that might be in an external partner domain. Your cluster will be able to service their requests. Allows RMS to service requests from 2 users from the rights access clusters from different RMS clusters, right access clients, sorry. So they're in a different rights management system. I'm in mine. I can say, you know what, if you're in the other system, you can still request my content. This supports exclusions to individual users and groups. So I can say I can trust not everybody in the other domain, but some users and some groups. And it can be one-way or bi-directional. I trust their users, they don't trust my users, maybe the way it's set up. You must export trusted user domain from partner before importing it locally. And there's steps in the books on how to do the import-export. It's real easy. Trusted publishing domain allows a local deployment to issue and user licenses to content protected by a partner cluster. Involves importing the server license certificate of the partner cluster. No limit to the number of supported publishing domains. great. I don't see there more than being like 3 or 4 or 5, but you could have as many as you need. The Microsoft account. So if you have users not part of your organization, you can give them access to the protected content as long as they have a Microsoft account. They cannot, however, publish content that's protected by your RMS system. Just consume it. So they can be end users, but not authors or publishers. Use Windows Live ID to issue to users who are not part of the organization who need to consume. Use trusted user domains for RACs issued by different clusters. Trusted protection, a publisher domain to allow local clients to access remotely published content. And a federation trust between organizations that have some type of federated relationship if you're using federation services, ADFS. Azure Rights Management, which is a Microsoft cloud-based platform, has information rights management software in there. All right. What's important to realize about this is that some people are really afraid of putting sensitive data into the cloud, right? And if we're using information rights management, we're probably protecting what? Some type of very sensitive data, health information, other person, PII or something like that. Well, people might be very afraid of putting that into the cloud and then protecting it there. But in reality, as far as I understand, this doesn't actually have the content in the cloud. And the cloud has no true access to your content. It's just managing the other parts of the system. All right. So the content can stay on your local servers or wherever you want to put it. So you don't have to upload your sensitive information into the cloud. You can keep it locally. It's automatically enabled and available in Office 365. All right, both Enterprise and Pro Plus editions. Office 365 is Microsoft's cloud version of Microsoft Office. All right. They sell it on a subscription basis. And there's different levels depending upon what you need. Are you a home user, a student, something like that? Are you a professional, a large enterprise? They have different features enabled for different levels of usage with a larger cost. You can get a home student edition, I think, for like $5 a month of Office or something like that. So, but these other subscriptions cost more money, but you have these extra features. But if you use rights management in Azure, it still integrates with Office, Exchange, and SharePoint. So you can use those systems that you may have deployed to the cloud. Or if those systems are still on premises, you're not deploying them in the cloud, you can still use this service to protect content. But again, without having to put your content into the cloud. This is an old slide. So if you do go to your Azure portal, you may see some slight name changes and where this feature is to enable it, pricing changes and that type of stuff. You sign up for Azure, and you should, and you will at one point be getting a 30-day certificate for Azure Access, so that you can try it out and that type of stuff. When you do, make sure you sign up for your emails and stuff like that, and they will tell you all of the changes that they're making, and it's usually a monthly email. New pricing on this new service is being rolled out, this service is going away, this name is changing, where we move this is going to a new location. They make constant changes to the Azure portal, so just be aware of that. So if you're going to be a cloud administrator and work with Azure, you're going to want to get into what they're doing on that public side. Okay, so this is a 60-minute lab. Notice the computers: London DC1, Server 1, London Client 1, Tray DC1, and Tray Client 1. All right, because we want to install, just do the basic, just get an install going, configure the basic templates, implement trust policies, and verify it on a client, including clients in other domains. All right. Then after that, I believe on the schedule today after lunch is choice time. Is that correct? Yeah. You could still work on your project. I'd like to try to finish that project tomorrow if possible. I don't know where you guys are in that project. If it's possible, if not, we'll talk about it. Let me know. I'm stopping the broadcast.